المسدد نبينا الهادي محمد في روحه عزم عظيم في الهمة الكبرى تجسد يغشى الوغى من غير خوف وحنين والأحزاب تشهد في روحه عزم عظيم في الهمة الكبرى تجسد يغشى الوغى من غير خوف وحنين والأحزاب تشهد القائد الأعلى المسدد نبينا الهادي محمد في روحه عزم عظيم في الهمة
ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Inshallah ta'ala, we shall continue our lesson where we stopped previously, and I presume we stopped at number 9 or number 10? Nazvi? 9. Number 9. Did we complete number 9? We completed it? Can you read out number 9, please?
Some examples set by the companions showing how effectively they abided by the Sunnah.
We did that. Correct? Okay, what's number 10?
Did the Prophet personal preferences and taste? What does this mean?
Okay. Did Muhammad ibn Abdullah, ibn Abdul Muttalib, ibn Hashim, ibn Abdi Munaf, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, did he have personal preferences and tastes? What does this mean? We must understand that this great leader and messenger, besides being Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, besides being a messenger from Allah Ta'ala, he was an Arab man living in 7th century Arabia. He was a what? Arab man living in 7th century Arabia. What does this mean? This meant that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam had personal preferences, personal tastes, personal desires, like any other mortal, like any other human being. But what we just understand is that these preferences are clearly distinguished from the Islamic law that he came with. Hence, his personal sunnah. This is what we're trying to understand here. Listen carefully. His personal sunnah is clearly distinct from his legal sunnah, which is binding upon every single one of us. Okay, an example. An example, or a classical example we can say, of this distinction can be seen when Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam came to Medina. When he arrived to Medina, he saw its inhabitants artificially pollinating the date palm trees. So he asked the people, why are you doing such? Like, why are you doing this? They said, this is a habit. We do this every single year. So he suggested to them, maybe it is better that you do not do this. Artificially pollinate the date palm trees. So what did they do? Seeing it's Rasulullah sallallahu, the messenger of Allah, they took his advice, his recommendation, and they did not do it the following year. did not artificially pollinate the date palm trees. But when they came to harvest the crop the following year, they found that their harvest, their crop, had greatly diminished. Had what? Greatly diminished. Now, would you be happy? Obviously not. A great loss is there. So they went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and said to him, Ya Rasulullah, ABC, it's hardly there. What was his reply? He said, I am only a human being. Then listen carefully to the next statement he said. Whenever I issue you with a command relating to your deen, to Islam, then accept it, take it, heed by it. But when I issue a command based on my personal opinion, then I am only a human. I could be right, I could be wrong, because this is a dunyawi issue. It does not mean that his advice is positive. Anything that was outside the deen, he could be right and he could be wrong. But can he be wrong in the deen of Islam? Nazri? Tricky question. Can he be wrong when it comes to the understanding, the recognition of La ilaha illallah? Nazri is saying no. What does Nazri say? Nazri says no. Nazri says, see, there's Nazri and Nazvi. Very nice, isn't it? Nazvi?
When it comes to revelation, no.
That wasn't the question. The question is, can he be wrong? Yes or no is the answer. Can he be wrong? Can he do mistakes when it comes to the teaching of Islam? Can he make a mistake? So you're agreeing with Nazri. Nazvi agrees with Nazri. Muhammad is saying yes. That's a major rebuttal. 1 against 2 or 2 against 1. And he's right. And he's right. Because yes, he can do a mistake. But what happens when the mistake befalls? Allah reveals. He corrects him immediately. He corrects him immediately. So whenever he relates to us anything about Islam, it is always 100% from Allah Ta'ala. Because if he does a mistake, he's corrected when it comes to Islamic law. He can never ever err when it comes to legislations. But personal opinions, yes. As he himself said, I am only a human being. Is that clear? Number 10. Issue number 10 on the paper. Is there any problems with that? No.
Can you give an example of when you made a mistake?
When he was doing da'wah to the chiefs of Quraysh, Abasa wa tawalla, he was given da'wah to the chiefs of Quraysh. One small example. And then the blind Abdul comes up to him, seeks information about Islam, and he frowns and turns his head. He frowned. Abasa wa tawalla. He frowns and turns away. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala corrected him. In other words, this person is better to do da'wah to than those chiefs of Quraysh. That's just a minor example. We don't want to get into it too deep because we're going to lose the lesson. You understand what I'm saying? So he was rebuked by Allah Ta'ala, rebuked for frowning and turning away from Abdullah, the blind companion, radiyallahu ta'ala. Number 11.
Linguistic definition of the word sunnah.
the linguistic definition of the word sunnah, linguistically, sunnah is derived from the root verb sanna, meaning to pave a way or to make a path easily accessible or passable. So you can say sunnah means a method or a trodden path. This is the word sunnah now. A method or a trodden path or a way or a road. It may even mean a methodology or an ideology or a syllabus or a curriculum. Anything that relates to this path can have the same meaning as sunnah. Understood? That's linguistically the word sunnah. Naam ya Nazri.
Islamic definition of sunnah.
Now when we look at the Islamic standpoint or terminology of the word sunnah, we must understand it can mean a number of things. It depends on the topic that is discussed. It can mean a different meaning. It all depends on the topic that has or is being discussed. If we look at it in hadith terminology, can you please write this on the board, Nazvi? When the scholars of hadith utilize the word sunnah, this is what they refer or they mean by it. In hadith terminology, the word sunnah denotes every saying, action, approval, and attribute, whether physical or moral, that is ascribed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. That is ascribed to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. This is regarding the scholars of hadith. When they utilize the word sunnah, this is what they mean by it. Let us look at this with a bit more of an analysis or investigation. In hadith terminology, scholars of hadith, those that work in the hadith, scholars of hadith, the word sunnah denotes, means, is defined as every saying, action, approval, and attribute, whether physical or moral, that is ascribed to her, to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. An example of this, an example of every saying. Who can give me an example? I'll give you an example and then someone gives me an example. The hadith collected by Bukhari on the authority of Al-Faruq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ وَإِنَّمَا لِكُلِّ امْرِئٍ مَا نَوَى. All actions are but by intention, and everyone will receive that which he intended. This is a saying, is it not? It's a saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. An example of the saying. Another one, again in the Sahih. من كان يؤمن بالله واليوم الآخر فليقل خيرا أو ليصمت. Whosoever believes in in Allah and the last day, let him speak good or keep silent. In other words, just shut up. You don't want to speak good? Shut up. And that's basically what it means. In the Arabic language, yasmut is a very, very stern word. In other words, just shut up. You don't want to speak good? Don't speak at all. And that's how we should be as Muslims. You got something good to say? Alhamdulillah, say it. It will be for you and not against you. You got nothing good to say? Just keep your mouth silent. Otherwise, it's going to be against you and not for you. Any other examples? Fuad, any examples? There's so many that you're trying to choose one, correct? Tabarakallah, tabarakallah, tabarakallah. I think Nazvi wants to give you a hand. Sorry? You're tired, eh? Fasting's getting the best of you. MashaAllah, tabarakallah. Anyone else? In tears? Ahlul Sunnah? Ahlul Hadith? Anyone? Naam, Habibi. Very good. The narration in the Sahih. O young man, I shall teach you ABC. And the hadith is long. It's a saying of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's as easy as that. The saying. The next one is action. How or where can we get some actions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? The matters of ibadat. Yes, Ya Muhammad. The matters of worship. He sallallahu used to go on the pulpit and do what? Teach his companions the mannerism of prayer, the actions of prayer, the way to perform prayer. Where did he climb? On the minbar, pulpit, and he said to his companions, Sallu kama ra'aytumuni usalli. Pray in the exact manner that you have seen me, Rasulullah, pray. And he would stand on the pulpit and he would do the acts of prayer. Would he say the prayers? He showed us the exact mannerism, action of each prayer by action. This is sunnah, action. Likewise, when he performed Hajj, before he initiated Hajj, he said, خُذُوا عَنِّي مَنَاسِكَكُمْ. Take from me, watch me carefully in Hajj, in other words. Look at very, very carefully. Be attentive in everything I do. And he said, take from me your actions for Hajj, your rituals for Hajj, the way that you should worship Allah in Hajj. So what did he do? He practically taught us, alaykum assalam, how to perform Hajj. It was his action, going from Mecca to Mina to Arafat to Muzdalifah, back to Mina. All these are actions. What he done in Mina, how he pebbled the devils and so forth. These are actions. Likewise, when he woke up at night, whenever he woke up at night, he used to utilize something to clean his teeth with, which is siwak. It's an action. But these actions, we should not take it lightly, should we? No. So what do? We try to practically involve ourselves and indulge ourselves in what? In the mannerism that he performed his life. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And Aisha would say that Muhammad sallallahu loved to initiate, to start everything from his yameen, his right side. Action. He would comb his hair, initiating from al-yameen, the right side. He would cut his hair from the right side first. He would wear his clothes from the right side first. He would wear his slippers from the right side first. He would enter the masjid with his right foot. And so forth. Did we know this? Did we know this? Did you know this, Nazri? Alhamdulillah. Did you do this? Alhamdulillah. But these are not minor issues. See, what happens is, we learn, but then we turn our backs and close our eyes. When Aisha says that he loved, what is the meaning of him loving something? You know, when we know that Rasulullah loved, desired to do this, why are we not the same? Why do we not love to do this? What, do we think that we love Rasulullah and then we don't want to do what he loves as well? It will be yaminik. And then eat with your right hand. Listen carefully here. Eat with your right hand. And eat from the dish that is closest to you. You don't put your hand on the other side of the dish like this, because there's a bigger meat there. A bigger bone of chunky, nice lamb. So you want to get that and put it on your side. This is not acceptable in Islam. This is not acceptable. It's very, very bad manners. You eat from the side that you're on. Now here this narration, listen carefully. This narration says, and eat with your right hand. وَكُلْ بِيَمِينِكَ. This is an indication of an obligation. Indicates an obligation. And this is backed by another narration that says, in the Sahih as well, let not one of you eat with his left hand, for indeed the devil eats and drinks with his left hand. Is that clear? Does anyone here say that you are allowed to eat or drink with your left hand? Combined? But when we have a hadith, Ya Muhammad, Sheikh Muhammad, that says, do not eat nor drink only with your right hand, what do you say about that? Did he say, unless you have combined the kebab on this hand, 7-Up on the other hand, not a problem, just do it? No. The question is before that, is that acceptable? Combining the two together? It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable. It's actually haram. It is not hard to put the food down and then get the cup and drink. Is that hard? It is hard when you want to make it hard for yourself. But man is ever greedy. He wants to eat and drink everything at one time. Now tomorrow, look at us when we break fast. La ilaha illallah. La ilaha illallah. You know, many of us live to eat, but not eat to live. This is not allowed in Islam. A companion said to the Prophet, but Ya Rasulullah, I cannot eat with my right hand. What happened to him? What happened to him? And he said to him, may you never eat with your left hand again. He became paralyzed. The man's hand that refused to drop the food and ate with the right hand, an invocation by the greatest man of all, done a dua against him, saying, may you never eat with this hand. And he became paralyzed. His hand became paralyzed. This is a wajib. This is wajib. This is fard. It's not a simple thing. Don't take this lightly. I've said this to other people, and it's only sunnah. It's only sunnah to eat with your right hand. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. So the man that got paralyzed, when he said it's only sunnah, what happened to him? Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. He was never ever able to eat again with that hand. When something is wajib, coming from Rasulullah, it is equal status of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we must adhere and heed to it. We have no choice. What we do is what we're told to do. Just because it came from Rasulullah doesn't mean it's only sunnah. Yes, it's the sunnah of Rasulullah, but that sunnah means wajib. See? In fiqh terminology, the sunnah means what? Wajib. So here, yes, it is sunnah, but the sunnah means or entails or constitutes to what? To an obligation. And this is where we've got to be very careful. You understand that? Who can give me another example of sunnah wajib? Abdullah. The bed? You sure? Allahu Akbar. Let us just stop there for a little while. He said the bead. Is that correct? Obligation? Obligation? The bead? To grow the bead? Is it an obligation? Is it an obligation? No. Obligation? 100%. There's no difference of opinion in the growing of the beard. There's the difference of opinion in trimming the beard, not in growing the beard. Subhanallah, brothers and sisters, or in particular the brothers, the beard is part of the male anatomy. The male anatomy, the human structure of man. The beard is a symbol of righteousness, integrity, honor, dignity. It's an adornment and a beautification for man. The beard is a natural inherent from Adam alayhi salam, who had a very, very thick beard, and all the messengers and prophets and all the righteous people. The beard is part of the biological characteristics of the male gender of human beings, distinguishing you from the woman, distinguishing the male from the female. The beard is an excellent, perfect, beautiful adornment, feature that will remain a sign of manhood. Ayyuha al-rijal, manhood to the last breath of this existence. This is the beard you're talking about? You sure? Is it still obligated, or you think it's still... Sorry? It's what? Binding? Where's your proof? Where's your proof? I agree with you, but we want to just make sure it is according to the Sunnah. There are plentiful of ahadith, plentiful Abu Umar, Abu Hurairah, just name them and name them and name them. All of them saying, leave your beard, leave your beard, leave your beard. None of them saying, you can shave, leave. No, leave your beard. In fact, there was two Persian men that came to Rasulullah. Listen to this beautiful narration. Two Persian men came to Rasulullah with big moustaches and cleanly shaven. He looked at him and said, who commanded that? Who commanded that? They said, our chief commands us to grow our moustaches. You know, twillies, the nice sort of looking, sort of so-called faggot style ones. Grow our moustaches and cleanly shaven our. That's what they said. Their chiefs taught us this. But look what he said. He said, but my Lord Allah commanded me to leave the beard and take this off. Trim it or remove it. Is there anything other than this doubt? Can we still doubt after this? So the beard, my beloved brothers and sisters, is an obligation. It's a sunnah, yes. But what kind of sunnah is it? We'll fly to where? To the wajib. And we said about the wajib, the ruling of wajib is what? One is obliged to abide by it, but the one who neglects it is a sinner who is eligible for punishment. Anything else? Any other examples of wajib? Do we understand what we're talking about here? Are we clear in this? Is there any doubt? Anyone? So if I ask you later on some questions, you will all understand what we've mentioned? And you shall be asked. Do Do we understand this? Alhamdulillah. Okay, let's move to the next one. Haram. Haram. And we all know the word haram. Prohibited. Unlawful. Haram. We all know haram. Yes.
It is saying wajib, but
Yes. Just look at it. The only ones that differentiate between wajib and farad are the Hanafis. Abu Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi, who said that the farad is anything in the Quran and the wajib is anything in the Sunnah. And he says that farad is more staunch than wajib. But majority of scholars, and this is the correct opinion, that fard is equal to wajib, and leave it at that. Now, haram. Prohibited, unlawful. Anything else? An example of haram. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu ta'ala anhu once said, Allah has cursed the tattooer and the tattooed, the plucker of the eyebrow and those who get themselves plucked, the ones who file their teeth for beautification, changing the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when he said this, a lady by the name of Yaqub from Bani Asad came running, and she used to read the Quran. She knew the Quran very well. She came running to Rasulullah saying that to Abdullah, Ya Abdullah, what is this I hear that you are cursing the tattooer and the tattooed and the rest of the women that I mentioned? He said, why should I not curse those who Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam cursed and are cursed in the book of Allah, the Quran? She said, I have read the Quran from cover to cover, and I do not find that which you are saying. And what did he say to her? Ahsant. He said to her, had you read thoroughly, you would have certainly recited what? Surah Al-Hashr, verse number 7, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ وَمَا نَهَاكُمْ عَنْهُ فَانْتَهُوا. Whatever the Prophet gives you, take. And whatever he tells you to keep away from, abstain from it. So she acknowledged this evidence. She agreed and accepted it. But then she continued, and subhanAllah, some women are ever argumentative. She said, but your mother or your wife sorry says this, or does this. What did she accuse him of with? What did this Yaqub accuse Abdullah's wife of? Radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Huh? Yes, a'udhu billah. She accused Abdullah's wife of plucking her eyebrows. So when he rebuked her with this evidence and she could not say a word about it, she accepted it. She said, but your wife does it. He goes, okay, my wife does it. Go inside and have a look at my wife and see if she really does it. So she goes inside, Yaqub, she looks and scrutinizes the face of her, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's wife, and looks and finds the negative. Goes back outside and she says to him, I'm sorry, she does not do it. And what did he say to her? Anyone know what he said to her when she said that? He said to her, had she plucked her eyebrows, I would have divorced her. Subhanallah. Had she plucked her eyebrows, she would not be Abdullah ibn Mas'ud's wife. Allahu musta'an. Where are the real men today? Not even teaching their wives that the plucking of the eyebrows is haram. Not even teaching them. Before we can even divorce, you divorce yourself. Because you could be the one in the fault and not her. When she has a lack of knowledge, look at why she has a lack of knowledge. If then she persists in the evil after knowledge has come to her, then you have no problem, no excuse for what you do. But you can never ever blame your wife if you don't teach your wife that this is haram. As he said, had she performed this, I would have divorced her. This is haram. And again we say it is a sunnah. So can anyone come and say now that plucking the eyebrows is allowed? Tattoo, is that allowed? The extension of hair, is that allowed? The filing of the teeth, is that allowed? The filing of the teeth, you know when they file the teeth in between? So that can, as a means of beautification. You've never heard of this before? You've never heard of it. They file between the teeth in order to beautify themselves, in particular the women. This was a common practice in Arabia, and it is still today utilized. This is haram, and the person that does it is cursed. The one that does it and the one that is done to. This is haram, sunnah, but haram. You can say it's sunnah, but sunnah which is haram sunnah. Any other examples of haram? Drinking? Drinking alcohol? Haram, very good. Anything else? Smoking cigarettes? You sure? It's not makruh? Some say it's makruh. Many say it's not many, probably only the Egyptian scholars. And the Malaysians usually refer back to Al-Tantawi and his likes. So they refer back to Al-Azhar as the main pinnacle of Islamic reference. Correct? Correct. So they will have every lovey-dovey in their deen and in their lifestyles. So to them, the smoking is makruh, to many of them. Yes, sorry?
Wearing the trousers below the ankle.
Below the ankles is haram, yes. Anything else? Nothing else is haram. Shaving the beard is haram. Growing it is wajib. Very good. Swine, pig, haram. Anything else? Ahlul Hadith. Sheikh Imtiyaz, what do you reckon?
Plastic surgery.
Plastic surgery has its acceptance and its rejection. Music is haram. Indefinitely. Anything else? Black magic? He deserves the sword. Now, anything else? Very good. Wearing gold and silk for whom? For men. Can a man wear silk if there's a reason for it?
No.
Yes. If there's a reason, the skin irritation or whatever, silk actually is a benefit for the skin if you have some kind of an allergy. And this was proven in the days of Rasulullah. Anything else? Sorry? Making your hair what? Undercuts, in other words. Yes, haram. Undercuts. Al-qadhf in Islamic law. Riba, haram. This is all sunnah, but haram. There are many harams. The eating of the dead animals and birds. Can you eat dead animals and birds that have died of natural cause? You cannot eat that. In other words, if you find a bull that has entered the river, and you can see this before your very eyes, and he has just freshly died, but of natural death, drowning. Can you take him out and start using him as chops and steaks and so forth on the barbie? Can you? Are you allowed to eat this? You are not allowed to eat dead animals who have died of natural deaths. You are not allowed to eat an animal with a canine. Did you know that? Like leopards, lions, tigers, wolves, dogs, and so forth. You are not allowed to eat a bird with a talon or a claw, such as a falcon, a vulture, an eagle, a hawk, and so forth. These are not allowed in Islam to be eaten. These are all haram. Again, the main issue here is, it is sunnah, yes, but it's sunnah that is haram sunnah. Are we understanding what we're getting to here? Okay. Mandub. Mandub, or another word for it is mustahab. Mustahab, and that means recommended or encouraged or desirable. Mandub means recommended, encouraged, or desirable. Another word for it is mustahab. And there are other words that you have probably heard. You heard nafil, tatawwu'. Now here comes sunnah as well. This can be called as well sunnah. Sunnah, sunnah. There's sunnah wajib, sunnah haram, sunnah mandub, sunnah sunnah. What does sunnah sunnah mean? That you are allowed to do it and you get reward for it. And those who neglect it will not be sinning. They will not be regarded as a sinful person. This is where the sunnah can be used and only used. Kabich. The other words in English you'll see is optional, voluntary, supererogatory. Write it on the board please for the students. Supererogatory. No.
How can you distinguish between wajib and sunnah?
Okay, inshallah. For the first time you've done a mistake. You've been 100% until now, Nazvi. And you had a dictionary. You've never used it before, that's probably why. Aha. Supererogatory. Whoever gets it correct gets 100 ringgit from Mr. Imtiaz. Supererogatory. Aha, very, very good. You fixed it up. That is the exact way of spelling it. Supererogatory, in other words, means extra, optional, voluntary, additional. That's what it means. Now this is where you are allowed to say, no, it is only sunnah. No problem. An example of this. Mondays and Thursdays, fasting. Is it wajib? Is it wajib? No. Is it haram? No. Is it sunnah? Yes. Praying before and after the prayers, whether before or after, besides the farad prayer. Is it wajib? Is it wajib? No. Is it haram? Is it sunnah? Yes. See where we're getting to? See the difference here? Giving charity besides zakat. Is it wajib? No. Is it haram? No. Is it sunnah? Yes. The one who does it is rewarded. The one who neglects it is not regarded as a sinful person. This is where sunnah is allowed to be said. Oh, it's only sunnah. But is the beard sunnah? No. Is under the ankles the garment sunnah? No. Understand this. Why is it not? Because there's a clear indication of a prohibition or of a command. When the hadith says, eat with your right hand, can you say it's sunnah? What happens if you say, if a father, for example, says to his son, go get me the newspaper. Get me the newspaper, he says to him. No, your dad, your son is sunnah, I'll have to get it if I don't want. He'll get clobbered, would he not? Clobbered. He'll get smacked for it, correct? This is what we got to understand. So sunnah can be sunnah, but when it is a genuine sunnah. Any other examples? Is the siwak sunnah, wajib or haram? Why is it sunnah? Abdullah. So we can differentiate now. Why is it sunnah? What do you think? It's not arkan what? We're not talking about the pillars, the sunan, the wajibat, the salat. We're asking the question, why is it sunnah? Sorry, Nazir. That's the answer. Because there was no command saying it is an obligation. He did not say, you have to do this. No, he did it. But he didn't say, you have to do it. You with me? Getting up and praying at night. He prayed every night. It was actually wajib on him. It was an obligation that he prayed at night, tahajjud. Is it an obligation for us? Is it haram for us? Or is it sunnah for us? Sunnah. Why is it sunnah? Rizwan. Sorry?
Because it's mandatory on prophets.
No. It was not commanded. He did not command us to pray at night. He said the best prayer after the fara'id is the prayer at night. But he did not say, get up and pray. Did he do that? Did he say that? No. There's no command. So it goes down to sunnah mandub. Do we have to fast Mondays and Thursdays? No. But should we? Yes. We are allowed. And it's better for us. But do we have to? No. Although he did. Why do we not have to? Mahbub? There's no command. But when there is a command, it comes to wajib. This is how you differentiate between the different categories. When there's a command, you look at the hadith and you see what the scholars have said regarding its derivatives, whether it's wajib, haram, mandub, or whatever. Any other examples of sunnah? The rule sunnah now? The supererogatory sunnah? Tawheed prayers. Is it an obligation or is it sunnah? You sure? You 100%? You sure? Your surety is correct. It is only sunnah. But sunnah mu'akkada. Now we come to this understanding. There's something called sunnah mu'akkada, which falls under the category of this. Third one, sunnah mu'akkada wa sunnah ghayra mu'akkada. Can you write that on the board, Nazvi, or you're finito da musica?
I can do it, but you have to repeat it very slowly.
Okay, I'll repeat it for you very slowly. It's an Arabic word, so you are allowed to do a mistake in it. Sunnah mu'akkada. Yes, sister. Surah Al-Hashr, verse 7. It does not say that do not pluck your eyebrows. It says take whatever the Prophet gives you and leave what he warned you against or told you to leave. That's what the verse says. Sunnah mu'akkada and sunnah ghayra mu'akkada. Why don't you rub this out? So just this top section and just put this up here. Rub it out again and put it up behind so I can write it up. Very good. Very, very good, Tabarak. It's a very good transliteration. You can be a transliterator. Insha'Allah ta'ala. Sunnah mu'akkada and sunnah ghayra mu'akkada. And we'll just have some examples so you can understand the difference between the two. Ghayra mu'akkada. Ghayra. Ghain. Gha. Many Malaysians can't say gha. Correct? Or we would listen to the 106, the adhan on the television, on Ashra, and they say, instead of, what's the section? They say instead of khair, they say ghair or something like that. They can't say kha or ghain. This is the adhan, the Malaysians, they have difficulty in saying it. Sunnah ghayra mu'akkada, very good. Very good. I could not have even done better, Nazvi. Okay. This goes under the category of number 3, mandub. The difference. We said earlier on that tarawih is sunnah mu'akkada. What does that mean? It means a stressed sunnah, a confirmed sunnah. emphatic supererogatory, if you want to put it in better words. Emphatic supererogatory. Can you write it for us, Mahbub? Emphatic supererogatory. Emphatic supererogatory and a non-emphatic supererogatory. So the first one will be sunnah mu'akkada, a stressed sunnah, a sunnah that was always done, a continuous, perpetual sunnah. That's what it means. Like 2 rak'at before Fajr, he would never ever abandon it. Very good, that's it. So that is the sunnah mu'akkada, is the emphatic supererogatory, meaning that which is stressed, extra emphasis, extra emphasis. As for the ghayri mu'akkada, are those that are non-stressed, non-emphatic supererogatory. The non-emphatic supererogatory. Imtiyaz, I want an example for the first one soon, inshallah. So get your dictionary out, inshallah, or your computer, and start thinking strongly. Fuad, I want an example for the second one. Okay, you can give me an example of the first one. You guys, inshallah, think about it, and I'll be asking you right away. Okay, it's a very interesting one. Where does it fall? Which one does it fall? This or this? Not really, because he would always sleep in that position. He was known to sleep in that position perpetually. So you can say it does fall under the emphatic supererogatory, the mu'akkada one. What does mu'akkada mean? Let us just understand it before we get some more examples. It means that which he did not leave, or he done it continuously. Continuously. An example is, the sister mentioned earlier on, Taraweeh. That's mu'akkad. It is not wajib, but he would always do Taraweeh. Whether by himself or his companions. So that's a sunnah mu'akkada. He did not leave it. Another sunnah mu'akkada is, sorry? The witr prayer. Very good. Very good. Although, like Abu Hanifa and Nu'man ibn Thabit radiallahu ta'ala anhu, wa rahimahullah, he says the witr prayer falls under this. He says witr prayer falls under this. Ahnaf consider witr to be an obligation. There is one time where Muhammad sallam is not narrated that he prayed witr. Who knows that time? One time ever in the sunnah where it is mentioned that Rasulullah did not pray the witr. Who knows this? Think about it. And this is where it releases itself from the obligation. And not only that, because the desert nomad, when he came to Rasulullah and asked him, Ya Rasulullah, how many prayers are obliged upon us? He only taught him the 5 prescribed prayers. He did not even tell him the sunnah, before and after, or the witr. And when the man went away, the Prophet said to his companions, if this person is truthful in what he said, by abiding to these prayers and the pillars of Islam, he will enter Jannah. He will enter Jannah. But where in the sunnah does it mention that he did not, or was not mentioned that he prayed the witr prayer? Only once in the sunnah it is mentioned. Anyone knows? Bit of a hard question, is it? Sorry? No, not in the battle. When he was performing Hajj in Muzdalifah, it mentions he prayed Maghrib and Isha, and he woke up at Fajr time. When? At Fajr time. He did not mention, the narrator, he got up and prayed witr. And it was the actual actions, the rituals of Hajj were very, very detailed in description. Extremely detailed. Every second of his Hajj. Now, so it is sunnah mu'akkada. Fuad, sunnah ghayra mu'akkada. This one. That which is non-emphatic or non-stressed or non-confirmed.
Also, I think Hajj means swimming, but all at the same time. So you would need some.
Fair enough. Horse riding, archery, swimming. Okay, not a problem. It's a sunnah, yes. But you can say that. Very good. You give me 3 examples. I only wanted 1. Anyone else? And for which one? Which one? Mu'akkada or غير mu'akkada? Very good. The 4 rak'at or the 2 or 4 sunnah before Asr prayer. He did not always pray this. He rarely prayed this. And it is sunnah to rarely pray it. You understand that? It is sunnah to what? Rarely pray it. So it's not sunnah mu'akkada. It's a non-stressed, non-confirmed sunnah or non-emphatic supererogatory. Is that clear? Do you understand that? Any other examples of the emphatic one? This one? Mu'akkada? Now, Tahiyatul Masjid is mu'akkad. Actually, I disagree there. Why do I disagree? According to the most preponderant opinion. Why do I disagree? Because it becomes elevated to wajib. When you enter the masjid, you are not allowed to sit down until you pray 2 rak'at or the prayer which is a prescribed prayer. In other words, you are not allowed to sit in a masjid until you have prayed. It's called the Masjid At-Tahiyyah or the greeting prayer for the masjid. Because the hadith says, do not sit down. See how you differentiate between the 2?
Yeah, but I have a question. For example, who doesn't do that, will he be punished?
يستحق العذاب. He is eligible for punishment. According to the correct opinion, Sheikh Al-Albani has a very, very strong treatise on this.
Yeah, but the other one, you just mentioned the Arabi.
That is if he is not entering the masjid. There's another obligation here. Did he tell the Arabi to eat with his right hand? Do we say that if he eats with his right hand, it's an obligation, correct?
Ask about the praise.
فاهم عليك. لكن نفس الوقت, understand something. That is an exemption here, where it's an obligation. Is Friday Jum'ah mentioned? Friday Jum'ah. The khutbah.
Yeah, but the Jum'ah is referred to the khutbah.
Ya Habibi, it's still the same, it's still prayer. It's still exempted from the 5 prescribed prayers. So it's a similar scenario. The hadith says, do not sit until you pray. So this is now a condition of going to the masjid and sitting down. There's a condition there. If you want to go to the masjid, you are not allowed to sit, as the hadith says, unless, this hadith of Rasulullah, until you condition that sitting with prayer. It's clear. And this is the saying of the majority of scholars.
But you make it like the same, like farad and...
It's wajib.
Yeah.
It's wajib. If we say a sunnah mu'akkada, it's not, you can sit down.
So
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. Would you sit down if you go to the masjid without prayer? No. Would you sit down?
I usually pray.
But no, not usually.
Yeah.
Would you, I'm asking the question, would you sit down?
Don't tell that you mean exactly.
No. I'm going to the masjid.
Okay.
I'm you.
Okay.
Huh? I get into the masjid.
Yes.
Barakallah. Do I just sit down? Would I just sit down? I know the hadith, where the hadith says, don't sit down. So what would you do? Would you sit down?
No, I will pray.
Why would you pray?
Because there's commanded to pray.
You've just answered the question.
But now, I don't make it in the same level with the farad. You make it the same level with the farad, like the dhuhr or...
الفرد والواجب مختلفان. أليس كذلك? There's 2 differences. But I'm not saying that the sunnah of the masjid is to greet the masjid with the 2 rak'at is the same as the prescribed prayer. I did not say that.
So what's the difference between making dhuhr example or making 2 rak'at before?
The difference is there's a command, a condition of sitting in the masjid now.
Are they on the same level?
No, of course they are not on the same level. How can they be on the same level? A person who abandons the farad prayer can be a kafir. A kafir. But a person who abandons tahiyyat al-masjid is not a kafir. He's a sinner only because here it's a wajib, mana fard. It's a wajib.
Wajib, which What's the meaning?
An obligation.
The meaning of Jumhur or Ahnaf?
لا الجمهور العلماء. جمهور العلماء is the majority.
You said the wajib and fard the same meaning.
No. I think it's Arabic is you're misunderstanding the English. See what happens is when your English is not up to scratch, you might be misunderstood. That's what the problem is. I think that's what it is. نعم يا أختي. Now that's a different issue altogether. In Jama' when you're traveling, that becomes a sunnah. Is it allowed to be abandoned? Yes, it is. You can pray the normal prayers, but it is better to pray Jama' wa Qasr when you're traveling. It falls under sunnah. But what the brother is confused about is, what we're trying to say here is, that the Prophet ﷺ conditioned that if you want to sit in the masjid, you have to do what? Pray 2 rak'ah. There's a condition here. Because he did say very clearly in Muslim, Hadith Abu Hurairah, لا تجلسوا. لا تجلسوا. Do not sit until you pray 2 rak'at. So anyone that goes to the masjid and sits down, in reality is disobeying Abul Qasim sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and is eligible for punishment. Naam ya akhti. Tahajjud, it's sunnah for us. Yes, or bi ankam muakkada. Why is it muakkada? You answer the question. In the light of what we just took now, why is it muakkada? We've already answered the difference between the two. No. No. Who knows? No. He did it continuously, perpetually. He continued to do it throughout his life. We said al-mu'akkada is that which is done continuously. And ghayr mu'akkada is that when he did it sometimes and left it sometimes. Like the fasting of Mondays and Thursdays. It's mu'akkad. The fasting of 3 days a month, mu'akkad. The prayers before Fajr, the 2 rak'at, mu'akkad. Before and after Dhuhr, mu'akkad. After Maghrib and Isha, 2 rak'at, mu'akkada. Naam ya Fuad. Mu'akkad. It's a sunnah mu'akkada. It's a stressed, a very, very emphatic supererogatory. Is that understood? Is there still some confusion there? Is that understood? No.
Just that, is there not 3 categories, or is muakkada and ghayr muakkada subtitle?
Look, if you want to do a subtitle, you just put the basic term for it is mandub or mustahab. You can put on the side many other terminologies, many other terms you can say. You can say nafil, tatawwu', you can say sunnah. Then you got the sunnah of 2 categories or 2 sections, mu'akkada and ghayra mu'akkada. But I just hope you understand the difference. Yes, sister? Yes. 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 If you do not want to do tawaf, you do this salat, 2 rakat. Yes. You don't have to do the tawaf when you go to the Mecca. As some scholars did say, that the greeting of Mecca is the tawaf. But if you do not want to do tawaf, you can just do the 2 rakat and sit down. Because it's still a masjid, is it not? Masjid al-Haram. Yes. Any other examples? Sorry? Any musalla is considered a place of prostration. Musalla is a place of prostration. Yes. Yes, Azwan. Yes.
Some of the scholars disagree on that.
Yes, there is. There are scholars that disagree, as the brother said, that say that it is not wajib. But the hadith clarifies it for us and says it is definitely an obligation. When the hadith Azwan says, do not sit down, what does that mean to you? Can you imagine I'll give you an example. You can understand from, inshallah, from this paradigm. Rasulullah was here with us today. He's in the masjid. And he's teaching the companions. Right? And he says to them, do not sit down, whoever enters the masjid, except until you pray 2 rakat. Would you sit down? When you think of it like this is how it is. Another great evidence for this, when he was giving the sermon on Friday, the khutbah, on the minbar. Look how important the 2 rakat is. Look how important. A man enters and does not pray the 2 rakat. He sits down. What happened? The Prophet ﷺ stopped his khutbah. أليس كذلك؟ أوقف الخطبة. He stopped it. And he said to a man, have you prayed 2 rakat? What would you say now? Oh, it's only sunnah, ya Rasulullah. He said, no, get up and pray 2 rakat and sit down. What do you say? It's only sunnah? If it was only sunnah, it would not have been such a problem, would it? It was so strongly stressed as an obligation. Otherwise that man would have remained seated and there was no need to intervene or interrupt the khutbah. A khutbah, an admonisher. He stopped it and told the man, have you prayed? He goes, no, ya Rasulullah. Get up, he said, and pray. So do you really still say it's only sunnah? The evidence is like concrete. A concrete slab. It is no dents in it. Now, Akhti.
There is a controversy of opinions.
Yes.
That in Ramadan, once you have done the Tawheed,
Yes.
and you've done your wudu, you are not supposed to get up and do tahajjud.
You are not supposed to. Is that what the question is?
No, we are supposed to do other ibadahs.
Okay.
And all that. But then there are other sunnah ustads.
Yes.
Says,
Otherwise. Okay, let us look at the sunnah of Rasulullah. There are many asatiza, many mashayikh, many ulama. At the end of the day, there's only one Rasul. Correct? What did he do? If you pray tahajjud or taraweeh, and then you pray witr, and thus you desire after sleeping or after whatever, before the appearance of dawn, to pray more rakat, you are allowed. Where's the evidence? The evidence is in the sunan. In the books, it mentions that he done witr one night and he prayed another 2 rakat after it. But he did not repeat the witr twice. The hadith says, La witrani fi layla. No 2 witrs in one night. So if you do want to exceed more rakat after your taraweeh and you prayed witr, you are allowed, but you do not commit a second witr. Is that understood? And this is the sunnah of Rasulullah. So why should there be confusion? It's in the hadith sahih. Why should there be confusion? But when you take it and refer it back to Rasulullah and not to our madhab, you have no problem. But if you want to refer to a madhab, then you will be so confused and complicated, and you'll be brainwashed, not knowing where to go. But as the hadith says, I have left you on a clear path, whose night is like its day. No one deviates but is destroyed. Was that clear enough? Now, Habib.
We speak about haram, halal, sunnah, mustahab, or the ulama, the madhahib.
No. I am not talking about madhahib. I'm not talking about madhahib. Madhahib doesn't bother me. I'm talking about my madhab. Rasulullah directly. أنا لا أتكلم بالمذاهب. أتكلم بالذي أمرنا الله تعالى به. I only speak about the one that I'm commanded to speak about and to follow. No one else. I was not commanded by Allah Ta'ala. وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ محمد ibn إدريس الشافعي فخذوه. وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ الحنفي. وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ الحنبلي. وَمَالكي فخذوه. No. وَمَا أَتَاكُمْ الرسول. This is my madhab. I'm in the same madhab as Abu Bakr as-Siddiq, Umar al-Faruq, Dhu Nurayn, Uthman ibn Affan, and Abu Turab, Ali ibn Abi Talib. My madhab. Am I right, Abdullah? Alhamdulillah. Where were we? I really have problems on my ears today. It's not you, it's my ears. Just only, I think someone has to ask for you. Huh? Yes. Is that the question? What happens if you pray at 2:30 or 3 o'clock? Well, the prayer for Dhuhr, obviously, it's best at its initiated time. But if you delay it before the other prayer, there's no problem with that. Except some particular prayers, like Asr and Maghrib, you haven't got time to play around with it. Or even Fajr, you've got to be very careful before, or it may exceed its stated time. The prayers that you are allowed to delay it, you are allowed to delay it if it's allowed in that context, or the context of it, yes. Now, يا حبيبي.
We got a hadith said, كنت نهيتكم عن القبور ألا تزوروها.
Now.
So is it wajib to زار القبور?
No, he is not wajib because لا هان أمر تنزيه. Don't get yourself mixed up. You're complicating yourself and everyone else because you have misunderstood my talk today. And I think it's the barrier, the English barrier. And inshallah ta'ala, this doesn't fit at all in the area.
No, but how can you distinguish between this amr and that amr?
There's amr in the amr itself, so we don't want to get into detail now. Because we're talking about the basic terminology of the fiqh. We're not talking about al-usul. There's a difference here. Al-usuliyun we haven't even got to yet, which we'll be discussing inshallah. This is not to do with this now. We're talking about al-fuqaha. And al-fuqaha. We don't want to go beyond the haram, fi haram tanzih, haram this, and haram that. There's 16 categories of haram. There's categories of wujub. If you want to get into it deeper, as a science. But we are not doing the science today. We're doing the basics. عرفت رأيي كيف؟ نعم. نعم محبوب.
Sunnah mu'akkada. For example, the sunnah mu'akkada, like 2 rakat before Fajr, so on and so forth. I've heard some scholars say, or read some books,
Yes.
where they say the person who leaves the sunnah mu'akkada prayers continuously, doesn't
Yes.
pray them, he is sinful. Now, do you agree with that, one? And secondly, how do you reconcile that with the fact that it's only sunnah mu'akkada? So theoretically you shouldn't be sinful
Yes.
if you leave it. But they're saying that if you continuously...
Again, that is an opinion. We can't say anyone is sinful if not the hadith says that. You understand what I'm saying? For example, where's the proof for that? There isn't any proof. It immediately abolishes, relinquishes the what? This opinion. That's an opinion. Some scholars to the extent said that whoever does not pray al-mu'akkada, the sunnah al-mu'akkada in prayers, their testimony is rejected. To that extent. Their testimony in the witness chamber is rejected if they don't pray a sunnah al-mu'akkada. See, they have different ideologies or understandings or opinions. But at the end of the day, anyone that claims anything, you must have the proof for it. The scholars that said, which there are many of them that said that a person who continuously abandons a mu'akkada, yes, will be sinful. But where's the proof? Where is the proof? Is there proof? There is no proof. So without proof, you are basing your opinion on baseless reports, on opinion. Yes, it is no good, we say, but is it a person by doing that is a sinful person? We have to have proof for that claim. And you will not find any proof. Because I've analyzed that particular issue in university. And it's just an opinion. It's strong, but it's weak in the sense of its essence, its entity. Now, I hope we've understood this. Is there still confusion here? Is there confusion? Alhamdulillah. Can we move on? Now.
Just one question.
Yes, Mahbub.
Sunnah muakkada is continuous sunnah. Prophet Sallallahu always used to do it.
Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, yes.
Ghayr muakkada is he Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam sometimes used to do it.
Yes.
Is there more reward in sunnah muakkada than ghayr muakkada?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because he stressed it more than the other. It was more important. Otherwise, he would not continuously do it, Mahbub. Like the Mondays and Thursdays fasting, that is very important. Very important. It's better than fasting just on a Tuesday, for example. Mondays and Thursdays are better days for fasting. So there are reasons why he would do those extra or stress extra sort of effort in those areas. In the mu'akkada. Naam.
Let's talk about like examples like fasting Mondays and Thursdays. Before you mentioned Sunnah mu'akkada.
Yes.
Does it actually eventually fall under these categories?
Yes, yes. That are just examples of the Sunnah. Have we completed that section? Are we understanding here now? Do we know it? Okay, alhamdulillah. Mubah. What is mubah? To do or not to do are both equal. To do or not to do are both equal. Meaning you can do it and you don't have to do it. An example of that is we've taken already, so we won't sort of take too much time here and get you all complicated and confused. The hadith of Saifullah when he ate the lizard. He ate the lizard. He can eat it and he can abandon it. There's nothing involved in it. No reward and no sin. No reward and no sin. Is that understood? Okay. Makruh. What is makruh? What is makruh in English?
Well, actually, most of the ulama, they don't agree about makruh.
Ala kulli hal. This is the terminology of the fiqh. They have agreed to that. I don't know which book you read from. They've definitely, the majority of scholars, al-jamhur al-ulama, have agreed to this. So I don't know where you got that judgment from. I don't know where you got that from. Which ulama? Tell me one. One ulama. You said most ulama. Give me one only. Yes. لا حبيبي يا عزيزي يا حبيبي هو أصلا صار على المكروه. He accepted makruh. Sheikh Al-Albani. He accepted makruh. I'm a student of Albani. I told Anna Albani. This was his ideology or his belief. I think there's a bit of confusion there. Not good enough. Not good enough. I want my shaykh, ulama. This is definitely the majority of the scholars, and I don't know anyone who differed, in fact. Okay. The question was, give me a definition in English of makruh. Yes. Naam.
Why do I mean? Ask someone else.
Because I want to see if you're understanding me. That will define whether you understand me or not. This is why there's so much confusion.
No, but I tell you the...
You don't understand me very well, no. No. I'm asking for the definition. The rendering, the translation. Sorry, my apology. The rendering of it. The translation of it. Disliked is one. Anyone else? No, that's the ruling. Ruling. Detestable. Disliked. Detestable. Anyone else? Disliked. Detestable. Hated. Fuad? Huh? Resist? It's a bit poor. Huh? Not favorite. That's very slang. Abdullah, with your head down. Not recommended. Disliked. Detestable. Distasteful. What do you say, Nazvi? You said distasteful? You said detestable. Distasteful. Abominable. What is it? Despised. Very good, Muhammad. Very good word. Despised, yes. Disgust. Oh, it's a bit sort of derogative, that one. Except to what derogative? Horrible is a derogative term too. Anything else? basic, discouraged, acceptable. So basically it's that which is disliked. Meaning there are things that the Prophet ﷺ disliked. One of the things is he would not eat while leaning or reclining against anything. He actually hated that. Do you understand that? It's hadith, Abu Juhayfa, like hayakallah. He would not like to eat while leaning against anything. So when you have your munchies and your tucker, don't lean against any like this or like that. And this is not liked, it's disliked. The Prophet ﷺ did not like to do that. Naam ya mahbub.
What's the difference between dislike makruh and mubah? Like you said in the previous example for mubah, he said to the Sahabi,
yes.
The hadith, if I remember, is the Prophet ﷺ wasn't eating the lizard.
Yes.
So he asked him.
The reason was it was not common.
So he
Yes.
the Prophet ﷺ didn't like eating.
He never ate it so he can dislike something.
So,
It was not common for him. He didn't say, I dislike it. Difference. Difference. Big difference in the meaning. He does not even know the taste of it to dislike or dislike it. But while here he says, I dislike leaning against something while eating. So it's makruh here. Here in another hadith he says, I dislike that sleep is slept before Maghrib, before Isha, sorry. Sleeping before Isha. He disliked it. Talking after Isha. He disliked it. All this is disliked. There's an actual mentioning, Ya Mahbub. The wording. See, there's no sin in a person committing it. There's no sin. But the one that leaves it because of the Prophet ﷺ disliking it, you get reward.
So is that what I'm trying to get at?
Yes.
Is it his personal preference? Prophet's personal preference?
Well, it probably was. It probably was.
Okay, but still,
That's why it's not legislated as a manner of Islam, in the sense of there's no reward in it, in the sense of, or there's no sin if you commit it. Because it's still, like, I'll give you an example. Abdullah ibn Umar, if he knew that the Prophet went underneath a branch, he would go underneath the same branch as him. Only because he wanted to follow meticulously the footsteps of her, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And by doing that, with that intention, you'll get reward, inshaAllah ta'ala. See, it's not just to follow this and that. Follow him very, very, very carefully. And there's the reward in that.
So can one say
Yes.
that if you leave something which the Prophet didn't like reclining,
Yes.
but not with the intention of doing it because the Prophet did it,
Yes.
then is there a difference in ruling?
Absolutely. إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. All actions are but by intention. If you're leaving it because of your own desire, you don't like, there's no reward in it. But if you leave it because he did not like Sallam, so you're leaving it because of that, then you get reward. Because you're following the footsteps of Muhammad Sallam. That's according to the majority of scholars, the jurists. Na'am Fuad.
Can you explain the talking after Isha?
The talking after Isha, he disliked that speech, staying up after the Isha with worthless talk, useless activities, watching TV, for example, like an example today, reading newspapers, reading magazines that are all built on nothing but, gibberish. Anything that is un-Islamic or anything that is even mubah is disliked to stay up after Isha. Why is that? What is the reason behind it? Very good. Because your time after Isha should be favored in rest. So you can get up for tahajjud and be strong for tahajjud and for prayer. I'll give you an example today. Those who stay up most of the night, can they get up for tahajjud? They can't even get up for fajr prayer. You see why it's disliked to stay up after Isha. The only reason you stay up after Isha if there's something beneficial.
What about work?
About?
Work.
Work. If you have to work at that time, and it's the time of work, you can't do anything about it. There's an exemption there. You have to live. Is that understood? So basically today, we've changed the nights into days. Where's the tahajjud? Where's getting up for fajr at a stated time? How many Muslims today really get up for fajr? Because they stay up all night, 12, 1, 2, watching garbage or listening to garbage or gossiping, kila al-qan, and Fajr they sleep, khalas. The appearance of the sun, nice bright rays, and then they still, and all the reward is gone. Because once your Fajr goes deliberately, you have lost your Fajr forever. Because you can never ever make up a deliberate missed prayer. Did you know that? Never ever can you make it up. Once you've deliberately missed a prayer, it is lost forever.
You still have to make it up.
You've lost it, you can't make it up.
But you still have to
No. According to the correct opinion amongst the scholars, you can never make it up. How can you make it up? I'll give you an example. Can you pray Fajr prayer at 3 o'clock in the morning? In Malaysia, Fajr now is what? 5 to 6 approximately. Can you pray it at 5 o'clock? Why not? Why can't you pray at 5 o'clock? Musa, I'm asking this question. Why not? Okay. Likewise, when you go beyond its time for no reason, how can you pray it? It's not in a state of time now, it's finished.
I learned that when it's forest, if you miss it because you...
If there's a reason for missing it, you can pray it. A reason, an accidental sleep, a forgetful, for example, forgetfulness, you are involved in some kind of, ordeal, like you're a surgeon and you're doing surgery in the theater and so forth. You got a reason. If there's a reason Islamically, yes, you make it up. But for no reason, just like you cannot pray it before, you cannot pray it after. Na'am, Ya Muhammad. He what?
He deliberately just delayed his soul.
Which one is the hadith is that? Which hadith is that? That in his hadith, Abu Isa At-Tirmizi, that he combined Dhuhr and Asr with no reason of rain or travel. Yes, it's an authentic narration. That is a narration where the scholars have derived from it that there's an exemption when there is dire need for a person to pray them together due to a particular issue, like the person who's committing surgery and so forth. They've explained it already, that narration, as being such. But just for the sake of delaying your prayer, no, absolutely not. There's no allowance to delay your prayer unless there's a reason behind it. And that reason must be genuine, and it's genuine Islamic reason. Now, traffic jam. We're actually going away from the topic now. We just want to finish this last makruh so we can understand it, inshallah. Is there any problems here first? Is there any problems there?
Yeah.
There is problems.
تفضل. Between makruh and haram. How can we distinguish?
How can we distinguish between haram and makruh? When the hadith says that I dislike sitting, reclining against something when I'm eating, is there a haram in that? Is there haram in that? He didn't say, do not recline. He said, I dislike to recline. The wording is very clear. أليس كذلك؟
Yeah, but the good hadith in Bukhari.
نعم. تفضل.
Yeah. He was wearing حلة سيراء.
حلة؟
حلة سيراء. So Sahabi, when he saw him, Sahabi said,
الحرير يعني.
No. Down his face. So I went back. I just told my wife.
Yes.
So the Rasulullah, he didn't tell him, do not do that. He just dislike it. It is haram.
I don't know exactly where you're coming from. No. But the hadith, you're confusing the whole sunnah. Let us stop, inshallah, stop with that. Do we all understand that? We're going to continue into complication, and there's no complication in this hadith. Do we understand makruh? We sure? Any other examples?
Makruh, is it only what the Prophet sometimes said he disliked, or can we derive situations that did not...
Yes, we can derive. You can derive. For example, entering the mosque, the masjid. You enter it with your right foot. You exit it with your left foot. Scholars have said here, this is not a particular sort of saying that it's an action that he performed. So we say it's otherwise it's makruh. You with me? because it's more sort of healthier and cleaner to start with the right hand side. Or entering the toilet with your left, exiting with your right. This is again issues that scholars have placed it under this category. Basically, the hadith are very clear and they're numbered in this nazri. And it is not hard to understand once you analyze and investigate yourself. The main concern here today that we should understand is, do we understand these 5 principles? Are they hard to understand? What we're trying to envelop here today is the meaning of sunnah. And it's not only sunnah, it can mean sunnah, wajib, sunnah, haram, sunnah, mandub, sunnah, mubah, sunnah, makruh. That's what we're trying to say. Is, for example, smoking cigarettes, that's where the scholars have put it, as makruh. Is that correct? We cannot put it there. See, some scholars have put it under makruh. And what does makruh mean? It's disliked. Those that say it's makruh. What does makruh mean? Disliked. Who dislikes it? Not only the Prophet, who else dislikes it? When you say it's legislation, a principle, it's Allah Ta'ala dislikes it. So when you say that cigarette is makruh, okay, who dislikes it? Allah dislikes the cigarettes. So would you still do it? As an example. To say it's makruh. Let us say it's makruh. It's not makruh, it's haram, definitely. But those who say it's makruh, is it still good to do? Although it's distasteful, detestable, disliked by Allah Ta'ala, would you still do it? Are we not supposed to love what Allah loves and hate what Allah hates? If Allah hates something, would you do it? Absolutely not. And not only that, those who smoke cigarettes, they are the brothers of the devils. Are they not? Anyone that smokes cigarettes, know here and now you are the brother of the devil. Am I being too harsh? Am I being too harsh? I'm not. Why not, Mahbub? You're nodding your head negatively. Why?
Allah says in the Qur'an that those who, paraphrasing, those who waste.
Very good. إِنَّ الْمُبَذِّرِينَ كَانُوا إِخْوَانَ الشَّيَاطِينَ. The spendthrifts. What's a spendthrift? The spendthrifts are the brothers of the devil. The spendthrifts, they're the ones who are extravagant, extreme extravagance. Because spendthrift is more higher than extravagance, you can say. The spendthrifts are the brothers of the devil. This is Allah's word. So when you buy a packet of cigarettes, spending at least, how much is in Malaysia is a cigarette box? Huh? How much? How do you know? 9 ringgit, huh? That 9 ringgit, wallahi, can feed a family. Isn't that tabzir, extravagance, throwing your money away? You are definitely, whoever buys it, a brother of the devil. I'm not saying this, Allah said this about you. Ikhwan al-shayateen. And no one can say on the packet, no, it's not extravagant, it's cheap. It's definitely haram, extravagance, you spendthrift, you are the brother of the devil, should be written on the box. That's what should be written on the box. Ya mubazzir inta, should be written. Ya mubazzir, oh extravagant, spendthrift, akhun al-shaytan. The brothers, the devil of the brother. Or the brother's devil. Would you still buy it after that? Like honestly. After you know what Allah says about you and that you are the tabzir and wazir and that you are akhwan al-shayateen, would you still buy cigarettes? Brothers and sisters, wake up. Wake those around you and warn them. Allah is saying this. And this is definitely extravagance. In Australia, it's worth a minimum of $11. $11 a box. That's equivalent to approximately 35 ringgit. 1 box. And they're the ones that light smokers that smoke only 1 box. There are those that smoke how many boxes? 2 or 3. Subhanallah. Imagine the money. That's approximately 90 ringgit. How much can you buy with that? Food for those poor people. And you can't say this person is not a mubazzir. He's not a spendthrift. He is definitely the brother of the devil. Definitely. And you tell him that in his face. Tell him you are the akh shaitan. You tell him that. You explain it to him, you tell him, don't be the brother of the devil. Keep away from this evil. Or you're too ashamed and too shy? Or too sort of lax? No problem, brother, no problem. There's no such thing as no problem, brother. This is laxity. This is procrastination. This is ease. No! Tell them it's haram. When you say haram, haram. And the hadith says, if you see someone doing haram, evil, change it. If not with your hand, with your tongue. And this is haram. I want to not even allow a person in my house that had a packet of cigarettes in his pocket. I said, no, I'm very sorry. I don't allow the brothers of the devils in my house. He goes, but, I go, no, sorry, brother, Ya Akhil Aziz, I'm sorry. I love you for the sake of Allah. I'm warning you. This is not acceptable. The hadith says this, the ayah says this. Close the door. Oh, no problem, you got a tray for the cigarette? Oh, yes, of course I have. They get the trays out, they get you 50 different types of cigarettes. And some people allow people, their brothers, for example, one of the guys came one time and had a USA on his shirt. You know, I'm not a harsh person, but I'm very, very careful. Big USA. I said, you will not enter my house unless you remove that shirt. Wallahi. You will not enter my house, a Muslim house, with the enemy in my house. Being commercialized, propagated, proclaimed to the world, USA, the United Snakes of Devils. Wallahi, they are nothing but that. They're fighting and fighting, and you're wearing USA? You're wearing USA in big letters? How dare you? What are you trying to say here? Don't be lax, brothers. Don't be harsh. Be harsh towards the haqq. Towards the haqq, I'm saying. Bil-hikmah wa-maw'idatul hasanah. Be fair and just and wise in your preaching. I'm not harsh, I'm very easy. But when it comes to reality, it's reality. It's not no problem, brother.
Oh, those are
You know the brother style? It's called the brother style. Now,
like family members, like, you know, the elderly.
family members, they're the first ones that need to be invaded. They're the ones that cause the most mischief.
What about the elderly that are already hard and they're hard already?
They're the hardest ones. I know exactly what you're saying. Be careful and be wise. When your home is your home, make sure it's an Islamic home. Don't let your children see any evil. You allow someone in your house smoking cigarettes. What's your child going to say? Dad, you say it's haram and you allow him in the house smoking? This is double standard here. It's hypocrisy. It's not acceptable. You teach your child one thing and then the other is done? How can that be? Are we Muslims? Are we fake, phony Muslims? What are we? You gotta, correct yourself. Judge yourself. And judgment means in everything that we do. Everything. Okay, where are we up to? Finito? I think you just guys want to sit down so you can let the time pass, so you can go home straight to your munchies, correct? So you just enjoy just sitting around, relaxing around, inshallah. And when you go home, that big roast is ready for you. Big lamb roast or chicken roast or whatever. Huh? What do you reckon, Imtiaz? Big smile on your face, huh? You can't wait. With nice cheesels after that. Cheesels. You love the cheesels, don't you? What we'll do, inshallah, now briefly is, I think it's far beyond Asr time. We were going to ask some questions about Ramadan, but I think it's too late. We can leave it, inshallah ta'ala, to Allahu A'lam if there's another sitting to next time. But are there any questions regarding Ramadan? Ramadan in particular, before we close this session?
Over here in the masjid,
Yes.
they have this dua
Yes.
for the Tawheed.
All this dua before the Taraweeh is a bid'ah, innovation.
So what is the hukum to pray in that masjid?
If there is no other place to go, Nazri, what are you going to do? You still pray in Jama'ah? Pray Jama'ah. Just avoid sort of, indulging yourself or participating in their innovations or their novelties. That's all you can do. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ مَا اسْتَطَعْتُمْ. Fear Allah in the best way you can. لَا يُكَلِّفُ اللَّهُ نَفْسًا إِلَّا وُسْعَهَا. Allah does not burden you beyond your capability. You hate it from your heart, but you can't do anything about it. Correct? نعم. نعم يا أختي. Is it Ramadan? Okay. Very good question. Very quickly, they are called Dawatul Asbab, those prayers with exemptions. As the Shafi'i nicely put it, he actually done this term. He named in his book any prayer that has been mentioned that has a reason is called Dawatul Asbab, the prayer with a reason. That is allowed because there's a condition here. But you're not allowed just to stand up and just do optional prayer in the times that are not allowed to be prayed in. Sunnah al-Musafir? Sunnah al-Musafir? What is Sunnah al-Musafir? Sunnah al-Musafir? What's that?
Before you travel.
Before you travel? I have never heard of that. I have never heard of that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe you're right, maybe there is, but I have never heard of it. I have never heard of that. I know there is athar in that, but not of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that they used to do wudu and pray then go on a journey. That's a different area altogether now in Hajj. Even that is not the sunnah. There's no sunnah when you wear the ihram to pray 2 rakat. The wearing of the ihram, the 2 rakat is for the ghusl or the wudu. But there's no 2 rakat specifically for the ihram. I understand exactly what you're saying. Before you get in a state of consecration, they call it al-ihram, they pray 2 rakat. This is a common practice. This is not the sunnah. Rasulullah did not pray 2 rakat for that reason. He prayed it for the wudu. It's got nothing to do with the ihram. Because he was in the masjid that time and he prayed it there. He wore the ihram, done the wudu or the ghusl, and then prayed 2 rakat for the masjid. Nothing to do with the ihram itself. Now we're going to Hajj. I thought we were in Ramadan. Indefinitely, the prayer for the woman, which is Taraweeh, is better in the home. Better in the home. Saying that, she is not to be prevented if she wants to go. Saying that, if she desires to have that spiritual sort of feeling and so forth, there's no prevention, and a man or the husband should not prevent her, according to the correct opinion and the hadith by Abdullah ibn Umar. Now, but it's better in the house, definitely. To the extent where the scholar said, if you live next to Masjid al-Haram, how many prayers is Masjid al-Haram worth, equal to? How many prayers? 100,000. Scholars have said, still the woman's prayer, the one who is neighbor of al-Haram in Mecca, is better at home. To that extent. Now, because the hadith says, وَبِيُوتُهُنَّ خَيْرٌ لَهُنَّ. The homes are better for them. Their homes are better for them. Any other questions relating to Ramadan? Yes, Musa.
This is my 6th Ramadan.
Tabarakallah.
Last night I've learned this dua to breakfast. Allahumma inni laka sutu wa bika amanu.
Yes.
Is that correct?
It's acceptable.
Oh, is it?
Yes. The best dua you can say, which is the most authentic, is قَدْ ذَهَبَ الظَّمْءُ وَابْتَلَّتُ الْعُرُوقُ وَثَبَتَ الْأَجْرُ Insha'Allah. That is the most correct and accurate of all the ad'iyah. Any other? Yes. And the reward, inshallah, is stable if Allah wills. Any other questions relating to Ramadan? Or are we all scholars of Ramadan? Now.
What about the dua for intention of fasting with Bisawmi, Qadlin, Nawaitu, Shahri Ramadan? Is that okay?
No. The dua got to be in your heart. The niyyah, sorry, not the dua. When we actually intend to fast, it's in the heart. The utterance of an intention is in no act of worship except one. There is only one time that has been proved in the Sunnah that you are allowed to utter the intention. Who knows that time? Hajj. This is the only time. Every other utterance of intention for any act of worship is a bid'ah, a novelty, an innovation, an error, a misguidance, a deviation that could lead you to big problems. Anything else? Nazli, do you allow your wife to be in the kitchen all day cooking for you when you're at home? Do you force your wife in the kitchen? Huh?
She does it too much.
So you're not one of those men or husbands that force their wives to cook from breakfast to lunch and then to dinner, all day in the kitchen in the heat to make him a beautiful biryani. You're not one of those people? Alhamdulillah, good man. Your wife must be happy with you, alhamdulillah. Because there are many men that just force their women in the kitchens, only to desire their stomachs at the end of the day. When the poor lady is there from morning sweating buckets, a towel around her head, wiping that sweat, and the husband, all he cares about is the food at the time of the iftar. He wants a big banquet, you know, a banquet. Wants about 10 different dishes with 10 different sweets and cakes. Imtiyaz, astaghfirullah al-azim. Inshallah ta'ala, till next time, Allah reward us all, and make sure that you make the best of your Ramadan. Subhanallah, today is the 8th day. It was like 8 seconds. So be sure and be very careful that it does not go into wastage. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
يغشى الوغى من غير خوف وحنين والأحزاب تشهد في روحه عزم عظيم في الهمة الكبرى تجسد يغشى الوغى